governments have done. They've done nothing. You think they're doing something, but they're doing nothing. They're afraid. Anyway, the Tanzanian case is sad because, Julius Nyerere did very well. Swahili was used, and Tanzania was the most literate country in Africa. And in 1992, they made a U-turn and decided to go for English, and everything has gone down. In fact, when they were making the U-turn, they blamed everything on Swahili, But then nothing has gone right since then. Anyway, language and commerce here. Consider what can happen if there was no language. Everything will come to a halt at Mokola, Kotokraba, Kejetia. Nothing will happen without language. Okay. In modern commercial activities, we have Facebook. What do you call it? These days, nobody goes to the shops anymore in the U.S. All the shops are dying because all you have to do is to go online and order, and the thing is brought to you. Who wants to go to the shops to get shot? And then, of course, we know that there's negotiation, and the women are very good at it. When I go, for example, Mikun, so first the greeting is my husband. And if she says, I'm her husband, why wouldn't I buy from her? They know how to sell. The language of negotiation is very important. Now, they will tell you, well, I bought this at 14 cedis, but because of you, I will give it to you at 10 and sell at a loss. Okay? And one thing in 1989, my students and I at Legon, what we did was to go on the buses. And when you went on the buses, there were people that sold medications. I don't know whether they still do it. They would come on the bus and sell. And we pulled one guy aside, and this is what he said: all traders lie. So language and gender, one area in which language has been used, that we find the use of language, especially in this, all the various intricacies that goes with it, is when we're dealing with gender, issues of gender. I've given the Kadi course, the Akanitive course, the Mood course, and the village course among the Huli, and the Israeli legal is certain. All that I'm saying here is that in all these places, the women know how to use language, and they win. The men don't know how to use language, and they lose. In the Akan areas, for example, there are sub-issues that come up, especially if a man has spoken arrogantly. They are fined. They speak arrogantly again. They are fined again. And it never stops. And I'm like, well, can't you see that all your money is going away? But what colleagues who have worked on some of these, what they say, especially, I don't know whether you've seen this book, You Just Don't Understand, by Deborah Tannen. It's classic. And she talks about the fact that men and women use language for different purposes. Women are more interested in networks. They want to keep the peace. Men are interested in status and so-called assertiveness. And, one thing that we will see this when we talk about liberty. Men talk more than women, but as soon as a woman opens the mouth to talk, he talks too much. We don't even give them the chance to talk. Anyway, the way we live impacts the way we speak. It's very easy. Take the U.S., for example. Those on the East Coast speak differently than those on the South or the Midwest. And there are prejudices and stereotypes associated with it. Those from the South, for example, people laugh at their English, but their English is the British English of the 16th and 17th century. But, despite the fact that people laugh at their English, they say they are sincere. Those on the East Coast, nobody talks about them being sincere. And if you don't believe it, look at who the political actors they are. I won't say more, I'll be in trouble. All right. Now, so here what I'm saying is that the place you live impacts the way you speak. Take the word umbrella. We call it akatewia in Twi. That which protects you from the sun. We have too much of it. But, you go to the temperate climates, and they can't have enough sun, so they sing about, you are my sunshine. I won't sing my sunshine. I know it's a proverb, but I've had too much of sunshine. Anyhow, the point I'm making here is, where you live, the flora and fauna. the zoology, the geomorphology, the climatology, all these impact our names. Our names are impacted by the geomorphology, the climatology, and all that. And then, of course, your profession also impacts the way you talk. Now, we know, for example, that professional drivers, especially taxi cab drivers and fisher folk, their language is a little obscener than the rest of us. You know, how about lay drug medicine men? We've said it already. They kind of lie a little bit. And then you take judicial discourse, medical discourse, and you see that there is, you know, some distinction there, differences in distinctiveness, rather, in language usage. And then also language used in the enactment of power. In the indigenous Ghanaian setting, the orators, you know, are credited with good language. The Achame, you know, they are credited. In Ghanaian English, we call them linguists. I'm very jealous when they say that because we don't see them as linguists. We want to appropriate the term for ourselves, linguists. So I call them orators or editors. Okay. I'm going to... Now, I want to talk about liberty. As humans, we call ourselves Homo sapiens. We are the wise one. You know, Homo loquiens. We are the people, the species with language. Homo grammaticus. We are the people who have grammar. We are grammarians. And to that I'm adding Homo libertas. We are born free. Humans are born free. And if we are, you know, then, you know, one thing is clear. You know, my work on language and liberty draws from African axioms. And the work of the English philosopher Isaiah Berlin. Berlin talks about two kinds of liberty: positive liberty, negative liberty, and positive liberty. Negative liberty, which he calls freedom from, and positive liberty, freedom to. We want to be free from intrusions as humans. I don't want, in Chi we say, you know, we don't want anybody to oppress us like they would of animals or goats. No. You know, and then we also want to have the freedom to do things, our own free will, within, of course, our moral values and our moral value systems and stuff like that. So the principle emphasizes language being indispensable in humans' pursuit of freedom from oppression and the will to take part in their own communal activities. Now, I'm going to skip some of these. The most important here is that it is grounded in different informal and institutional domains. Now, in the theory, what I emphasize is that I take it as axiomatic that it is interactive categories which should form the basis of every single analytical claim. Whatever we say must be based on what people actually say, not from our linguistic judgments. In any case, as linguists, once you become a linguist, you know, you don't become a good speaker of your language anymore. You know, these are not my words. This is from Antilla. You know, linguists have very funny take on language. If that wasn't the case, would we say colorless green ideas slip furiously? If the thing is colorless, how can it be green? Here I'm talking about semantic anomaly and stuff like that. Anyhow, the principle calls for language ideologies, usage, and notions of linguistic appropriacy, issues of understandability, interpretability, to be analyzed carefully in order to state correctly the extent to which they impact and are impacted by liberty. Language and liberty, here are the characteristics of the principle. Both language and liberty are rooted in the human cognitive experience and are concretized in human social practice. You know, I've said that language is innate, just as liberty is also innate. So the innateness, you know, joins them together. As humans, we're born with language, and we're also born with liberty. And so that when we feel oppressed, you know, the tendency is for us to use language to free ourselves from the oppression. Sometimes we are successful. Different cultures have different ways of doing it. In some societies, they resort to silence. In other societies, people talk. In Ghana, we talk. We march. We protest. Fix the nation. All those are very important. What they're saying is that something is wrong. That has to be corrected. And I tip my hat to those who organize those things. Yes, the presidency, whoever may descend on them. But what they're doing is important for the restoration of liberty. Now, in talking about liberty, I see it as a cognitive construct, a philosophical construct, a political construct, a moral construct, legal construct, economic, health. It is perfect and it is universal. We'll come to this. I'm not going to go over all this now. Now, liberty in the political process. Here, what I'm referring to here is freedom to justly influence governmental policies. We should have the freedom to do that. Freedom to compete for leadership positions, freedom to be part of and participate in the politics theater, bearing in mind that such rights are a matter of morality. That's the common good. I'm borrowing that word from J.B. DANQUAH. And positive law. Laws being defined as the area in which individuals can consider themselves as what? Free agents. Humans must have the free will to compete, autonomously in deciding for themselves despite external restraints. And we must also be ready to bear the consequences of our decisions. Those are very important. No matter one's political thought or affiliation, denial of or intrusion on one's political liberty is unacceptable and is condemnable. Liberty must be seen in our electoral process, cognizant of the fact that its denial often leads to disenfranchisement and political instability. If you oppress people for too long, something's going to happen. So I've put forward some recommendations here. Make people aware that they have political liberty, which gives them free and active participation in the electoral process. Have constitutional amendments that eliminate threats to individual political liberty. Have legislative instruments in place to protect and maintain political and legal liberty. Here I'm borrowing from Professor Datiba. Make certain that the Electoral Commission of Ghana, for example, works in concert with the executive branch of government and the political parties to enforce the laws on political liberty justly. Make political liberty available to the judiciary to enable it to decide the constitutionality of laws guiding the electoral process freely and justly. I'm repeating those words, freely and justly. Consolidate and strengthen political liberty to make it withstand any political and electoral challenges, and ensure that political liberty given by law is enjoyed by all, else it becomes a privilege. Now, here I talk about law being fundamental. Van Leer, Professor Justice Van Leer, the person who first gave the DANQUAH Memorial Lectures, who was the first to give it, I read his work, I like it a lot, and he talks a lot about, the normativity, for example, of a nation's existence, the fact that law is normative, the fact that, without law, there's a problem. And also the fact that, unlike the laws of nature, take gravity, for example, if you jump, you won't stay up, you'll come down. I don't know, unless maybe you were somebody else, They are not violable, but human laws must be violable. Because there has to be costs and rewards, such that if people break it, they know they're going to be penalized for it. And anyone in authority, who exceeds his power and uses force is no longer a magistrate or a justice of peace. I'm quoting from John Locke. The power of law this is very important. The power of law to punish violators places a considerable burden on lawmakers, to make laws that do not target a section of the population viewed by the majority as lawless or nonconformists. It's all too easy to say, well, these people are not behaving like human beings, they're behaving like animals. Let's put them in jail, and if anybody who speaks in favor of them, let's put that person also in jail. It's all too easy to do that. The power of law, as John Locke rightly says, wheresoever law ends, tyranny begins. And I think I want us to take cognizance of that. Besides laws directing humans' relation to good and evil in their private lives, as well as in the political, consensus political process, it's important that laws must also do what? Govern free acts and be about human happiness and or the welfare of the state. The judiciary's power to interpret and define the true meaning and operation of law must be ensured. Give the judiciary their free hand to do what they are trained to do. And what, as Van Leer says, the burden and responsibility to interpret the laws must be based on law, evidence, judicial precedent, and common sense. There must be no impartiality here. And again, I'm going to skip most of these. I like what Petit says here and what Rousseau also says. Rousseau says that he saw inequality as intruding on liberty, although I have to say I don't support Rousseau's work, especially on positive liberty, because of what happened with it. I mean, people like Stalin, and also, those of you in law know this already. If you look at the Republican view of law and how the extent to which it impacted the people at the time, you understand this more. Now, here is something that I'm not going to read it. It's long, and I don't think I have a lot of time. But yes, there's a précis of article, Ghana's Constitution, Article 14. And if you read it, basically what it's saying is that, holding a suspect for more than, I think I will read it because of something that is there. No one can be put in prison or have their freedom taken away unless they've been sentenced to a jail sentence, are suspected of having committed a crime, or it would be in the interest of public, be in the interest of public health. I'm sorry. I have bad eyes. Public health or safety to detain the person. The liberty of a child may be limited for the purpose of providing the child with education or for the welfare of the child. No one can be arrested without being told in a language they understand the reasons why they have been arrested and being informed of the fact that they have a right to a lawyer of their choice. Anyone who is arrested or detained must be brought before a court within 2 days. I think I can even end there. Now, this is very important because of a case, Awayevu versus the Republic, in which Awayevu, was kept in jail for 5 years, without bail, and the case had not been heard. 5 years in jail. And so in the end, the Supreme Court decided, you can't keep him there forever. He has to be freed. And I applaud the Supreme Court for doing that because it made the law itself unconstitutional. Well, here we also talk about Ghana's 1992 Constitution, where it talks about personal liberties, personal freedom. Of import is the fact that in Ghana, no one is above the law. And I think as Ghanaians, we should hold that to be true and enforce it. No one is above the law. And any acts or bills or executive actions that place any above the law subjects or forces others to injustice. Therefore, the fight for legal liberty must require a concerted effort on the part of those fighting for it to come together as a team, stay informed, step up, move forward in strength, starting to see some of these things, and stay in unity. Staying on the sidelines will make the fight unwinnable. Oh yes, you have to be involved in it. Now let me go to the next one. We must not overlook or underfund. Underfunding, we must not overlook or underfund and or under-resource the wheels that make the fight move and succeed. We must ensure that members of the legislature restrain themselves from passing biased bills. And if such biased bills are passed, the judiciary judiciously examines them and interprets them with attention to the text of the law, precedent, and intention of the framers of the Constitution. I mean, again, those of you in law, I'm not qualified enough to talk about it. I'm talking about originalism and the textualists. So how are you going to interpret it? Are you going to try to get into the history of the brain of those who framed it, the Constitution, and how they would have thought about it? Or do you interpret the text as you see it? Precedent is very important when you're doing these things. Now, let me talk about social liberty. Social liberty entails the nature and limits of the power which can be legitimately exercised by society over an individual. If society exerts too much power, that's wrong. To obtain social liberty, it is imperative that authority be held at the pleasure of the ruled. So if we vote somebody to the presidency, that person must understand that he is there because of us. It should be to us, and not to himself or herself. There has to be statutory checks. That check the limits of the power of governments. Other than that, we end up in tyranny. All right. Then I will say this and move on. Infringing on the social liberty of the governed is viewed as a breach of duty. If you infringe on the social liberty of the governed, it's a breach of duty. It makes you unqualified to become president or whatever. All right. In gender, language, language, gender, and liberty, here, I'm going to re-emphasize the fact that men and women speak differently. When it comes to quantitative speech dominance, men speak more than women in public. But then, we call women, we say they are talkatives wrongly, and sometimes it's used against them. And in Ghanaian, not just in Ghanaian society, you find it all over the place. There's a fraction of women say that they're not even given space to talk. Among the Khan of Ghana, we use epigrams. About madam. Well, the man should buy his own gun and keep it. About madam means when a woman buys a gun, the man keeps it. And I'm saying, well, why should the man keep it? If the man wants to keep a gun, he should buy his own gun. I'm speaking literally here. But the point I want to say here is that these epigrams are used to subordinate women, and it doesn't make sense. Now, women who are assertive, and stand up to men, they are called Obakokoni, a woman rooster, or a woman cockerel, which means the person is loud and arrogant. We don't want women to speak, let alone even, speak their minds. Such a label, as I'm saying, intrudes on the liberty of women. On health, we know what the WHO has said, what our organization has said, and what we see is that, there's violation of women's liberty when it comes to reproductive health. And, my own work, in Ghana is that disease and society's dominant actors intrude on the liberty of people who are sick. For example, I saw a woman I had known for so many years chained to an orange tree because she was sick upstairs. And I asked, why have you done that to her? They said, she will do this and that. And so I said, okay, let's take the chain off, let's put you in it. And then let's see. He said, Master, I hope I say yes, sir. Said, do you want us to do it? I said, yes. So we did it. And I said, let's go, let's leave him there. And they said, hey, Mujameho, are you leaving me behind? I said, but you have changed the woman. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. Yeah, when it comes to healthcare, again, translation is a problem, as I've already mentioned. And, something has to be done about it. You know of the Salem trials, the witch trials that were done in Salem. You know the test? You were asked to recite the Lord's Prayer. And if you couldn't do it, it means you were a witch. And then the other one was the third nipple. If you had a mole you are considered a witch. Can you imagine? Now, here in Ghana, when I taught at Legon, a gentleman came to my office and said, Dr. OBENG, I can't see a bien. Now, what's this? I want to say a bien, and I will tell the Nipanam Kese. What this person is saying is that my grandmother has only 2 teeth left, and they say that when they have only 2 teeth left, that's when they can kill and eat. I said, get out of my office. When she had all the teeth, she didn't kill and eat. And now she had only 2. Instead of helping her, look at what you're doing to her. Now we know what happens with Trokosi and all those places. I don't have to tell you. You know about them already. Now the point I'm saying here is that when it comes to health, liberty, take polygamy, for example. Take polygamy, Oh, well, I've talked with people and they say, oh, no, my culture allows me, my religion allows me. Now, so you don't understand what your religion says. Now, I know this is a touching topic. It touches a lot of nerves here. But consider it. For me, it's a health issue. I saw my mom live through it. It's a health issue. And it has to be addressed. We shouldn't pretend that it's not there. If polygamy is good, then we should encourage polyandry. Now, some people are going to say this guy is a lunatic. If men can marry more than one, then women should be allowed to marry more than one. What's wrong with that? If we don't want it, then we must not do it. It's a health issue. That's the way I see it. Don't tell me your culture allows it. Culture doesn't stay at the same place. Culture changes. When I was growing up, I saw some men wear the loincloth on board danta. And I lived with Krobos and Ningos, and during the depot, there was the beads and the loincloth and the beads all around, and they were saying, and as kids, we watched it. We pretended we were not looking, we were. Now they don't do that anymore. Now they have a rap, things have changed. Culture does not stay at the same place. So my argument is, it's time to stop polygamy. Parliament should pass a bill stopping it. I think that's more even dangerous than whatever they're passing now. Polygamy should be looked at and it should be abolished. I'll put men in jail for it. If not, let's allow polyandry. I don't know. Anyhow, ethical liberty, liberty intersects with ethics. The moral values and ideologies and social imperatives that guide individuals' behaviors and stuff like that. Now, I'm not going to read all of it. The main point that I'm trying to say here is that, our desire to act as we wish must be coterminous with our desire to act justly and ethically. It's important. We should act justly and ethically. I look at the case where, what do you call it, during coup d'etats and uprisings, we violate our constitutions. We violate the ethics. Our societal ethics, we violate them. Take the 62 one where I tell you Adam Afio Akpoje and Mr. Kofi Crab, were charged with assassination, a plot to kill President Nkrumah. And in that case, you saw the intersection of law, ethics, and politics. And what happened basically is that these gentlemen were acquitted. And when they were acquitted, the executive wasn't happy. So immediately they were rearrested. The president appointed a new judge and stuff like that. And the people were sentenced to death. They were in jail until they were later released. So you can imagine, where is the ethics here? How about the house cleaning exercise that was carried out by the AFRC? Those days, in 79, we all went to town. Let the blood flow, let the blood. Whose blood? If you come to think about it, there was a crisis there. Individuals' legal, ethical, personal liberties, were intruded upon. I hold it as abhorrent and abominable. Such war cries as let the blood flow or I don't know whether you guys remember it, But, women were stripped naked. And men were happy, were jumping. I mean, can you imagine if it was your mother? As a society, we were blind to the victim's plight and concerns, and it was a flouting of our own ethical liberty. Liberty and truth. We ask ourselves, does truth matter at all in politics? In political discourse, one of the things that we say is that hearsay is evidentiary. Hearsay is evidentiary. That will not hold in a court of law. But in political discourse, hearsay is considered evidentiary. I remember President Bush saying, since when did terrorists tell us they were coming to attack us? So we have to base everything on hearsay, on what the security agencies tell us. And sometimes they get it wrong. They got it wrong during the Iraq War. Saddam Hussein had nothing. It doesn't mean he was a good man. Anyhow, so the use of falsehood through libel and slander about a person, it damages the person's reputation and character, and consequently violate their liberty. So here, what I'm saying here is the use of falsehood in our polity. We find it all the time, and there are some of these talk shows, that people, in the U.S. it's very common. You can see that what they're saying is false, and yet they say it. So I will end with truth and liberty. What I say is that to have truth and the law on one side is to be guaranteed liberty from oppressive forces and to have the freedom to do as one wills. Liberty and religion. Here, the most important thing that I want to emphasize here is that, religious liberty deals with the right to free exercise of religion. Note that it gives individuals the power to choose what to believe in or what not to believe in and enjoy social life like everyone else. Any denial of the benefits of religious liberty is a denunciation of one's social being. Now, religious liberty also ensures there's a general freedom for all. And the Ghanaian Constitution says all persons shall have the right to freedom, the right to freedom to practice any religion and to, I can't even read. Eyes are tearing. The Ghanaian Constitution does not, this is very important, the Ghanaian Constitution does not state that religion or faith is a good thing or a bad thing. It's good that it doesn't do that. The Constitution does not indicate that the state should advance or inhibit any religion. If the state starts or begins to advance religion, there's a problem. Religious liberty neither establishes a secular public moral order nor constitutes a nation. So that it is wrong, for example, to call Ghana a Christian nation. It's wrong to do that. I'm a Christian, by the way, and I'm not shy about it. I teach Sunday school and I preach also in the U.S. But I think it is wrong, for example, to say we are a Christian nation. Once you do that, then what has happened is that those who are not part of it, their liberty is intruded. You shouldn't just, I think I read this from Professor Datiba's work. Majoritarianism, basing things, when you have majoritarianism and people are using it, especially when there are no checks on that, that can be a problem. Now, religious liberty guarantees that each Ghanaian citizen may believe as he or she determines by the existence of God and the function of faith in their personal life. Freedom to practice religion, to practice one's religion, is a basic, indispensable characteristic of the individual liberty. Liberty in education. Here, I talk basically about the fact that who decides what should be taught? What books should students read? What books should be banned? We all know what happened when Nkrumah was overthrown. His books were banned. Some of them were burnt. That was wrong. If you look at Ghanaian educational history, what you see is that different governments have determined answers to the above questions. The colonial government determined the nature and structure of our educational system. Some of the teachers that taught, had 8th grade education, some had 10th grade education. post-independence Ghana, I'm asking the same question. Now, one thing that I also found interesting is that in contemporary Ghana, the tendency for the government has been to change how many years SHS or whatever should be. And even strange is the onomasiology involved in it. JSS, SSS to JHS, SHS. Maybe there's something magic about the word high. I don't know. I argue that in discussing Ghana's educational system issues such as who determines what is taught, how it is taught, anticipated outcomes must be liberty guided. The linguistic rights of minorities should be taken into consideration. And, I studied Akan at the A level, and, it was kind of funny because there was a guy that when we were studying Akan and people were passing by, he would get up and close the doors, all the windows, and he said, we don't want them to know we are studying Akan, as if studying Akan was bad. And not just that, part of Akan was taught in English. Even though Professor Anokumi had written a book on, all these things who could be taught in Akan, part was taught in English. So I remember, maybe I was troubled. I asked my Akan teacher, why are we teaching this in English? You teach some of it in English so that they know we are learning something. As if you learn something in English, it's better than if you learned it in your own language. So anyway, and then some of the exams council, examines part of it in English. I became a chief examiner, so I know what I'm talking. And first I quit being examiner for English, and then examiner for Akan. I wasn't happy. In fact, when we were asked to write a course textbook for Ghanaian language, the Ministry of Education access to, a gentleman from UCC brought UCC course syllabus and said we should use that to write for GSS and SSS at the time. And I believe it was Ms. Vida Yaboa, who was the deputy minister. So I raised my hand and said, Madam, I've tested this guy who brought this. He doesn't understand what is in the syllabus. And if and he didn't. And so if we're going to write something that we don't know, then these kids are going to have problems. And then I remember her saying, oh, no, you write it. I said, no, I'm not. So I went and told Professor Dolphine, I said, I'm going to stop something. I want you to come with me to stop it. And she was generous. She went with me and I quit. It took, I don't know how many years for them to write it. But, here are some of the problems. Why should we write about vowel harmony and consonant mutation and when we ourselves are struggling to understand them? And we want A-level students. The same thing happened with oral English. We took tape recorders and went all over the place to test the students to speak like Brits when we were speaking like Ghanaians. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Recommendation, make liberty part of the social studies curriculum. I think this is very important. Liberty should be part of the social studies curriculum so that we can sensitize and conscientize the students about liberty. Economic liberty, here we're talking about physical liberty. People want to have the right to live well like humans. We want to earn a wage that is livable. If a government can't pay its people a livable wage, there's a problem. It's an intrusion on their physical liberty. Environmental liberty, I'm very passionate about this because in my hometown, everything is getting damaged. Everybody is digging gold for gold, and nothing is left, basically. In fact, our own land is gone. And we're not given a penny. I wouldn't have taken the money because I would prefer the land being there. But yes, illegal mining, even all mining, I'm against it. Because it's a rubber industry. It takes millions of years, for gold and diamond to develop. And so you take it out, and especially in the irresponsible way in which it is being taken out, it damages the environment. And we know the cardiovascular and hepatobiliary diseases that come with it. Here are some recommendations I make. Manage the land usage. Educate farmers about, how to use the land properly. In the 70s, they trained what they call the field assistants, who actually help the farmers. You know, I remember when we studied our Greek science, they said if you plant corn, they should be 3 feet apart. It's a waste of land. In the U.S., it's 1 foot. So you can have more corn, on your land, so you don't have to slash and burn 10 acres. Society must find ways for liberty and the environment to coexist. This is very important. Violence and liberty. Here I'm talking about, when there are coup d'etats, wars, and how violence is used to intrude the liberty of people. Take what happened in Sierra Leone. The West Side Boys, they were cutting off people's arms. The DRC, King Leopold, of Belgium, chopping off hands of people. In Ghana, protests against unfulfilled promises by the British monarch led to the shooting death of soldiers. And we also know about what happens during coup d'etats, the use of sexual violence. In general, the loss of individual rights during war and pseudo-wars is tantamount to the loss of their liberty. Who are the beneficiaries of liberty? You, me, all. Everybody benefits from it if we manage it well. Liberty is about persons and individuals. The two are different. Liberty is about persons and individuals, as well as the community. And so, being first and foremost a cognitive experience, personal receptors and personal dealings, but it's also a communal and social practice. Gaining of liberty and keeping it requires others to let go of their power. And exceptionalism, I'm almost done. Liberty is exceptionalism. We know liberty is exceptional. And this exceptionalism must be so recognized. An important part of human condition and being, liberty is unique because it is crucial to humans' ability to think and act as they wish. Liberty is vital. It's a vital source of and part of our human thought process, and an act of tolerance that enables us to accept and deal with opposing views. Its exceptional nature makes it adapt to human experience and calls for unanimity and consensus building. Liberty's exceptionalism is built on the idea that one can change one's opinion. You can change our minds without fear of favor. I can support you today and oppose you tomorrow. That's what liberty is about. So, what I've done in this lecture is basically to examine the concepts of language and liberty. I've argued that language and liberty are first and foremost cognitive experience. They are innate. We can add Pluto's word, they are intellected, and they are actualized in speech. They intertwine in human life and social practice. They index each other. They are important in such institutional domains as law, politics, religion, medicine, education, commerce, etc. And they are empowering. Language is empowering. Liberty is empowering. I argue that language indexes and is indexed by speakers' place of abode, profession, gender, political affiliation, and educational status. I identified and elucidated various types of liberty: legal, political, healthcare, ethics, religion, educational, social, fiscal, gender perceptions and construction, and environmental liberty. I discussed how and the extent to which violence impacts liberty, and I touched on who the beneficiaries of liberty are, and this exceptionalism. To have liberty, those in power must govern at the pleasure of the governed. To quote Sir Isaiah Berlin, freedom for the pike is death for the minnows. The liberty of some must depend on the restraint of others. Thank you very much.
Well, this is an absolutely brilliant, brilliant, brilliant lecture. Can we give him another round of applause? I'm not sure how long it took him to develop this, but if this is day one, then we all have to bring more people here for day 2 and day 3. This is stupendous, fantastic. Now, how can I, summarize this? So I have 3 take-home messages. So the speaker took us through the concept of language and liberty. And that language is empowering, liberty is empowering. There was an overview of what language is and what liberty is. The characteristics of language, and what was more important for me is the role of the brain in language. And we can see when the brain is affected by disease, we can't think, we can't talk, we can't walk. So the brain is quite central to the way we speak and our liberties. So we often don't tie in the physiological being and the language, but it's amazing, God's creation, how the brain impacts on the way we talk and the way we think and our freedoms. And then he goes on to liberty. Had problems defining liberty, and the law and liberty, liberty and truth, and violence in liberty, and of course, all coups are bad. I mean, they define one's liberty. And then he went through beneficiaries of liberty, and another interesting aspect of the influence of politics and ethnicity on language. He gave examples of the Chinese, the Scandinavian, and how politics influence our language. Another interesting area was the idiolect. How individuals, play around, their personalities actually impact, how Nkrumah speaks the language, and even Rawlings' way of speaking, and the British man, how he typically speaks the English language. So how politics can impact on how language is spoken and how it also interacts with the brain. And then a big area of the brain and the language. And that is subsumed in the frontal lobe, and how diseases of these areas impacts on our neurological faculties. And then went on to discuss Broca's aphasia, phonetically talking, and various other dysfunctional dysarthria, diseases of the brain that gets you to distortions of your speech. And then he went on to language and ideas. What are language and ideas? How the thinking, your mind, how we use language in our various activities. Language and social action, how you say yes, 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 I wouldn't begin to, do his dancing bit, but that was equally impactful as to the way we speak language and our social actions and its impact on the way we talk. And the impact of our professions, the law, the medicine, all these impact on our language and politics, And another interesting area I picked up was the xenoglossia, that is speaking a language that you haven't learned, and glossolalia, that is a non-human language. No, so this has been a huge learning experience for me, and language of religious wars, language of medicine, and how different countries have impacted the language and disease. The role of impact of Latin in disease, Greek, and even Ghana, the Kwashiorkor, and the Senegalese, the Beriberi. So these are all impacts on the language. And then came to the health, language and health, the role of the shrines, the healing centers, the churches, the mosques. These are things that you never really ever thought of how they impacted on your language. And another area, so a lot went on language and the professions. And then language and liberty. The Homo sapiens, we think we're so wise, we're liberal, we're born free, we're full of problems. We're free from oppression, freedom to do as we choose, and the two important things, points he made, that is language is innate, and liberty is also innate. And so humans are born with these, and when we're challenged, we tend to language. The language and the political processes. And then he went to law and liberty. Where law ends, I like this bit. Where law ends, tyranny begins. And that law must be appropriate, just, and in harmony. Then we go on to social liberty. Having social liberty demands having protection against liberty. And then the role of language in gender, liberty, liberty in health, liberty in ethics. And ultimately, he says that we should ensure that language is empowering. Language is also empowering. And with my little bit input, I want us to thank the speaker for a tremendous. And we should all come back tomorrow for day 2 and day 3. Thank you very much.
Right. So, all too soon, come to the end of day 1 of the 58th JB DANQUAH lecture series. Let's thank our president for a wonderful summary of a wonderful lecture, and with the words that we aim to be here tomorrow to listen to the subsequent sequel of this wonderful lecture series. Thank you for the sponsors. We've mentioned their names at the beginning of the lecture, so just acknowledging the sponsorship. And my job here is to inform all of us that there will be refreshment in the foyer in front of the auditorium. Especially for students, we hope that you get back quickly to campus and also safely. And for fellows and dignitaries, to inform all of us that there will be a refreshment in the fellows' lounge. So with this, I would like to say thank you very much, and have a good night. Right. So the distinguished speaker and the president and officials will be leaving, and I will kindly ask us respectfully that we'll keep up standing whilst they speak. Thank you.